So, as I record this video, Pluto has made its final ingress into Aquarius. It is daylight savings time and it's Scorpio season. And all of those things coming together in this moment got me thinking about the darkness, both our inability to sit with and confront the darkness, and the darkness as a healing modality. Let's talk about it. Hey, cosmic cuties, it is your friendo, the lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, and I've got Pluto on the brain. This video was partially inspired by this amazing workshop that I attended last week from It's K Darling of Cosmic Healing Fam. I'll make sure to put on screen the link to their website, which is cosmichealing.addpotion.com. They do these amazing sort of community education sort of seminars and talkback seminars where they explain concepts, and this one was Illuminating the Unseen, and it was all about the outer planets, so Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. And I just got stuck on the Pluto-ness of it all because it's such a generational indicator about power, about transformation, and about confronting and sitting with the darkness. And so that's what this week is talking about, or that's what this week's video is talking about, rather. I want to talk about what I think Pluto means both in the sky when it's transiting and affecting the adults that are living. I also want to talk about the Pluto generations and the kind of transformational journeys that they might experience to finding their personal power based on their Pluto placement. I want to confront and sit with the darkness with you. So let's get into it. First and foremost, one of the things that I find interesting about astrology is, to me and my autistic brain, it's very much in alignment with the idea of noticing patterns in the natural world and applying those patterns to our lived experiences. So for all of the inner planets, before we get to Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, we have generations of data across cultural experiences. Like, people all over the world have looked at the world around them, the seasons, the plants, the sky, the stars, to make sense of the world, right? And when we get to the outer planets that lack of data starts to show. So anytime that I'm talking about Pluto, I always like to offer up the caveat that Pluto was discovered in 1930. So we barely even have 100 years of data to understand how Pluto might affect our lives. I also like to offer up the fact that Pluto has a 248-year orbit. It takes 248 years for it to make its way through all 12 signs. Versus, for example, the sun covers all 12 signs in 1 year, 365 days and a quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Pluto, 248 years. So we don't even have a full orbit of Pluto to collect data on. So, take any sort of Pluto analysis with a grain of salt, is my point. It does spend anywhere from 12 to 24, 25-ish years in any particular sign. And thus far, we've experienced the generations of Pluto in Leo all the way through now Pluto in Aquarius. And then to understand what Pluto means, I like to think about two things: the mythology surrounding Pluto, as well as Pluto and its planetary dignity. So the mythology part around Pluto is that Pluto is the Roman god of the underworld. The Greek equivalent is Hades, and I think I mention that because I think more people are probably familiar with the Hades Persephone myth, that like Hades is the god of the underworld. He desires and marries Persephone. She spends half of her year in hell with Hades, and then the other half of the year is when she comes out of that world and we get to experience spring, summer, flowers, beauty, all of that good stuff, right? And so when I think about Pluto, I very much think about the idea of going into the underworld. I think about sitting with, feeling comfortable with the darkness. I think about shadow work. I think about digging into the darkness, really confronting it, sitting with it, digging into the muck and the depths of things so that we can shed light on them, so that we can transform them. I also think about, the experience of death, right? You have to die in order to experience the afterworld that is hell in this mythology. And what has to die so that something else can be reborn? And what about this death rebirth cycle ends up leading to these cycles of transformation? Something dies at this level and then it's reborn at this level, and then that thing dies and is reborn at another level, and then how does this lead to transformation? And that kind of mind mapping or imagery very much puts me in the mind of Scorpio kind of energy. The way that Scorpio transforms from the scorpion to the eagle to the phoenix rising from the ashes, right? So that brings me to the planetary dignity of it all. Now look, before you come for me, I understand that planetary dignity is a very traditional or Hellenistic astrology sort of tool and way of thinking about things. And planetary dignity should not apply to the modern planets. But you know what? I'm one of the people that believes that it should and that it can, and we can find meaning in it and trying to find the planetary dignity of these outer planets. And so when I think about Pluto, I think about Pluto being at home or in its rulership with Scorpio. And I think about Pluto being exalted in Leo. Pluto at home in Scorpio talks about these deep, intense, dark, shadowy experiences that feel, maybe a little difficult to deal with, as they are happening, but they also end up transforming us. It's the intensity of the experience that brings about this intensity of transformation. And then when I think about Pluto being exalted in Leo, I think about, again, this transformation that levels us up, that gets us to stand in the light of our own personal power. And then these two places talking about how we, again, dig deep into the darkness, into the muck, and bring these things into light. And how, of course, we find power in that. To pause for the cause for just a second and just name the fact that I am annoyed as hell, that I am literally holding my mic together with my little fingers. This thing is so broken. If you are a supporter of this channel and have a little extra coin to spare, please check out my Amazon wish list. I have a mic and a mic stand on there together. The cost is definitely less than $100. It's not something that I can afford right now, but if you have the coin and want to support this channel, please consider it, because we are struggling over here. This is my previous mic stand. It is a paper towel roll, masking taped, and an ankle weight. We need some milk. Anyway, okay, getting back into the Pluto-ness of it all. But you know what? We're confronting the darkness. We're dealing with it. We're transforming. Anywho, so that is what I think of when I think about the meaning behind Pluto. And now I want to get into the Pluto generations to talk about the darknesses that they may be confronting, the transformational journeys that they may be on, and what personal power might look like to each of the generations, starting, of course, with the Pluto in Leo generation. So Pluto was in Leo between 1937 and 1958. Pluto in Leo generation is also known as the baby boomers. And here's the place where I want to mention that Pluto transiting in the sky affects all of the adults, well, everybody, but I'm just going to use the adults versus children. Pluto transiting in the sky affects the adults in a certain sort of way, and you experience that in your life in a particular kind of way, right? But There's also the experience of the people that are born under this transit that are not necessarily of age during when this transit happens, but because it's in their natal or birth chart, it's kind of what astrologers call their natal promise. It is something that they will experience, grow, transform, find power in over the course of their lifetime. And because Pluto is such a slow transit, this is the kind of thing that unfolds slowly over the course of one's lifetime. And so, yeah, I want to offer that caveat, because the baby boomer generation is called the baby boomers because their parents went to war, came home from war, and had a lot of babies. It's not necessarily that the baby boomers themselves had all of the babies, if that makes any sense. And I say that because Leo is so much associated with children and the having of children and the creating of children. And so, yeah, I just wanted to offer up that caveat. What's happening in the transiting sky is different from what happens in people's natal charts and how they experience in their lives. Pluto in Leo may be the journey of finding one's personal power through self-expression and creativity. It could also be the experience of, if we're talking about a range of experiences, and that's like the highest expression of this energy, right? That I get these intense experiences around my voice and how I express myself, some intense experiences around my creativity or the creating of children and how I parent. Those kinds of experiences might play out in terms of what ultimately contributes to their transformation. And then they may find their power in their self-expression, the ways in which they express themselves and are affirmed for that expression. They may find that power in their creativity, in the way in which they shine in the world, and the ways people see and are drawn to them for the ways that they shine in the world, despite or because of the intense experiences of transformation that they've had to endure, right? So this is like the highest expression of that energy. But then when we think about like kind of the opposite or a different part of the spectrum, what about Pluto and Leo baby boomer experiences of needing to feel affirmed, needing to be respected? I feel like I hear this word a lot when it comes to baby boomers. Why don't people respect me? And what they mean is hold me to not a higher standard, but view me as being on a pedestal, being above them, somehow more royal, more important than their lives are. And that's the kind of respect that they're requiring. And so what is this experience where when I think about it, the spectrum of experience of finding your personal power because you were able to authentically express yourself or your creativity, and people see that authentic expression and respect and hold you in high regard because of it, or the experience of worshiping people that they feel have that experience. So celebrity culture, I feel like the worship of the celebrity was sort of born in this era. And then also the other end of the spectrum where they're not expressing themselves. They have not found that personal power, but they demand to be affirmed and respected, almost as if they are these old ass toddlers, like throwing a fit about, why don't you respect me? Why don't you hold me in high esteem? And so, yeah, those are some baby boomer experiences that I have observed, but I'm also curious if there are any baby boomers that watch my channel. Tell me about your experience. And I will also add that for all of these Pluto placements, it really matters about the house, because it's such a generational planet. You've got like 20 years of births, and you're a part of this whole cohort of people. So then how does this affect you personally, where you find it in your chart, what house, and what planetary aspects it's making to other planets? So an amazing Pluto and Leo placement could be Pluto sitting in the 5th house of creativity and self-expression, and allowing you to have these experiences that are intense but also transformative around your creativity, around your pleasure practices, your hobbies, that kind of thing. But you know, on the other half of things, what if you have this Pluto placement sitting in your first house and everything about you seems like things that are surrounding your identity and your selfhood seem to be constantly shifting and transforming? That might be a different experience. Next up, I want to talk about Pluto and Virgo. So this is early Gen X. This is the time between 1956 and 1972. When I think about Pluto and Virgo, I very much think about, I mean, this seems to be like an embodiment of the Persephone Hades myth, in that Virgo is often considered the maiden, Persephone the maiden as well. Virgo is so much associated with like, farming, agriculture, grain, that kind of thing. And Persephone has the same exact associations. So what is it in the Pluto and Virgo experience about going to hell, learning, because of Virgo's association with Mercury, learning about hell, digging into those depths, and somehow then taking that knowledge to become a healer in the world above? I also think because of Virgo's opposition to Pisces energy, that this might be the energy of, instead of understanding your healership because you are able to connect with and heal people around you, what if it's the experience of stepping back and understanding that the healer must heal themselves first? Because so much of Persephone's journey is alone, that she must detach from the family, detach from society, at least for a period, half of the year, before she emerges anew. And then I think about Virgo and perfection. So if the Pluto and Virgo journey is about applied knowledge to heal first yourself, then I very much wonder about the experiences of Pluto and Virgo thinking about healing myself means getting better. And are we striving for better, or are we striving for perfection? And how literally nerve-wracking that must feel to have these intense experiences that make you strive for better, but also might trigger you into striving for perfection. And then finally, when I think about, you know, again, the transformation that occurs that leads to some sort of sense of personal power, I very much think about personal power through healing. Personal power literally through personal healing work, doing that deep shadow work, digging within, turning things over in your mind in some kind of way, and somehow applying this learning to physical changes in your reality that feel like healing yourself as a person. So that's like the highest expression that we could get in terms of like Pluto and Virgo, transformation and personal power. I feel like one of the lower or other parts of the spectrum experiences that you could experience with Pluto and Virgo is a martyred experience. The healing is not applied to making yourself better, but to other people around you. And then what does it feel like to feel obligated to heal for other people or do other people's healing work for them, versus what does it feel like to be martyred? Why do you take for granted what I do for you? No one asked for that. No one asked for your healing labor to be applied to them, and why haven't you applied it to yourself first? So yeah, those are some Pluto and Virgo experiences. And then once again, I have to underline, where is it in your chart? Are you applying the healing in a day-to-day, really physical sense because Pluto in Virgo is sitting in your sixth house? Or is this about understanding your healing of your values because Pluto in Virgo is sitting in your second house? So yeah, I wonder where it is. And then also if there are any planetary aspects being made. I'm also an artist, and I just finished a portrait of the singer activist Sinead O'Connor, and they were part of the Pluto in Virgo generation, and they had Pluto in Virgo in the 10th house of like public reputation, and it was conjunct Uranus for them. So very much the experience of these really public, out of the blue, weird sorts of experiences that are Plutonian in nature, like have a lot of depth, have a lot of like, oh, we're not supposed to talk about that in public kind of energy to them. And it all playing out in the main stage. All playing out in the main stage publicly for everyone to see. And so very much the example of her tearing up the Pope's picture in public to talk about like childhood sexual violence, and the church, all of the things, the activism that she expressed through her art and her own healing journey playing out publicly in these very, what seemed like off the wall kinds of experiences. So yeah, where does your Pluto placement land in any house in your chart, and then what is it connected to? Pluto and Uranus, both outer planets that we don't talk about a whole lot, but this is very much rebellion. It's the energy of digging deep to find your personal power so that you can rebel. I really respected that about her when I saw that chart. Yeah. Oh, where's the portrait? Do you want to see it? Let me find it. Then we come to the second part of the Gen X sort of experience, which is Pluto in Libra. And this is the time between 1971 to 1984. Also, I just want to note that like some of these years are overlapping because of the same exact experience that we're having or have been having like the last 2 years, where Pluto will cross between two lines. So for example, like Pluto entered Aquarius back in 2022, and it was at 0 degrees of Aquarius for a while, and then it went back to Capricorn at 29 degrees for a while, and it's just been straddling that line. So yeah, these are not exact years, they're more talking about like the overlap. So yeah, Gen X part 2 is Pluto in Libra, 1971 to 1984. This is my generation, so I feel like I understand it most intimately. So from what I understand it to be, this is the experience of transformational experiences in our relationships with others, and how that transforms us, and then how we end up finding our personal power because of these transformational relationships that we may have with other folks. So yes, very much the experience of having these intense relationships that have power dynamics to them, who's in charge, who is, you know, the second string kind of person, how is power actually being played out in these connections, both what you can see and what you can feel. Yes, to these intense relationship experiences, but learning so much and transforming so deeply your sense of self because of your relationships to other people, and then finding your personal power. And then the challenge here is when you find that personal power and understand who you are because of your relationships to other people, do you then stand in that power and understand who you are? Or does it become an experience of you needing to dominate other people? Or is it the experience of continuing to devalue and put your own self to the side and allow yourself to be dominated or in subjugation to other people? How do you find that balance? It's really funny that Gen X is characterized by both Pluto in Virgo and Pluto in Libra experiences, and is also known as like the invisible generation or the forgotten generation, because we really do be like low-key to ourselves because of these Pluto placements. I think, as an astrologer, Pluto in Virgo is very much about detaching from the whole and understanding and healing your own self. Pluto in Libra is very much the experience of, oh, okay, I learned from my relationships to other people, but at some point I need to figure out how to not prioritize other people over myself. And so sometimes in that learning of how to prioritize yourself, you have to take a step back. And so these are both the energies of taking a step back for a moment. And, you know, maybe for some of us, myself included, that moment is a little longer than it needs to be. And people forget about Dre. They really do. But we're here. I promise we're here. And then the next Pluto generation, 1983 to 1995, we've got Pluto in Scorpio. And yes, I'm going to be indulging in stereotypes for a moment and talk about power via sex, sexuality, and other taboos. So Pluto, again, as a reminder, we talked briefly about planetary dignity. Pluto is at home in Scorpio, if modern astrologers are allowed to use the concept of planetary dignity to describe outer planets, but that's a whole other debate. But yeah, if Pluto is at home in Scorpio, then, you know, according to planetary dignity, that means that it can do its job most efficiently. And its job is to get us to dig deep, to sit in the shadows, to confront the darkness, to feel safe in confronting the darkness, to sit in the darkness. The other thing is that Scorpio is a fixed water sign and can very much be the experience of still waters running deep or stagnant waters, literally getting stuck in your feelings. And so, yes, to Pluto being efficiently able to get us to go deep, to experience really intense experiences that pull you into the darkness, that force you to sit in the muck of it all, to deal with the shadow sides of life, to really confront the things that we don't talk about in polite company: taxes, death, sex, sexuality, kink, addiction, all of these things, right? Yes, to Pluto being able to efficiently do its job there, but then because of that fixed water nature of Scorpio, do Pluto and Scorpio folks end up feeling stuck? And I think that this is particularly where the house placement matters. Is Pluto in Scorpio happening in your first house of yourself, and you internalize and feel somehow responsible for a lot of these Plutonian experiences and lessons that come up? Is it happening in the seventh house, in your relationships to others? And then how do you get stuck in these patterns of relating to people that may or may not be very healthy? So yeah, again, the house matters so much in all of these Pluto placements. But yeah, this is the millennial generation who is quite comfortable sitting in the darkness and finds personal power through their experience of the darkness and feeling okay with the darkness. I feel like the Pluto and Scorpio / millennial generation is the first time you start to see these really, this dark humor where people are like, oh, it's okay, I'm gonna KMS and it's gonna be fine, that kind of humor really coming to the forefront. But yeah, what is it like to have these intense, dark experiences and to find your personal power in what you learn from these intense experiences and the ways that you overcome them? Again, reminder of the visual of Scorpio, which is the scorpion in the dust, in the muck, going to the eagle soaring through the air, going to the phoenix, literally burned but rising whole and beautiful from the ashes. This is the kind of imagery, the vibe of Pluto and Scorpio. And so yes, to personal power from the darkness, we love that kind of highest expression, but then also where's the other spectrum of the experience, which is so much rooted on a need, a desire, a constant craving, maybe for power or physical objects, but it could be the experience of constantly feeling wanting. And by wanting, I mean, yes, desirous, but also a sense of lack. I don't have, I can't do, I can't this, it won't ever. And that's the kind of stuckness that I'm referencing when I'm talking about, you know, the fixed water nature of Scorpio. And so I wonder about these kinds of expressions: personal power rooted in overcoming, or the lack of personal power rooted in I can't. Come to the Pluto in Sagittarius generation. This is early Gen Z, 1995 to 2008. When I think about Pluto in Sagittarius as a generation, I think about the power of getting free and teaching others about that journey. In order to get free, you know, you have to have these intense experiences that transform you. So what are Pluto in Sagittarius intense experiences that feel like the opposite of freedom? In which ways has the Pluto in Sagittarius generation felt as if they were limited, constricted, boxed in, subjugated, enslaved? Yeah, all of these words that are like antithetical to freedom. What experiences might a Pluto in Sagittarius experience that feel like constricting them, and what is it that they had to break out of to experience the kind of transformation that leads to a personal power that is rooted in expansion and feeling free? And then what did you learn from that experience that you are also supposed to be disseminating, teaching to other people? So this is very much the experience of yes, getting free, but also gaining wisdom. And again, not to, you know, overhype the homie, but I don't think you can overhype your homie. I have to shout out It's K Darling of Cosmic Healing Fam. They are a Pluto in Sagittarius, and a lot of the ways in which they live their life is very much the vibe of getting free. They refer to themselves as a fugitive in some kind of way. I forget the exact phrase, but it's really cool. But yeah, that fugitivity is a value of theirs, and the ways in which they're always talking about like expanding their horizons, being able to see and experience more of the world, and the experiences that they cultivate for community that are rooted in their sharing of wisdom from the experiences that they've had in terms of what helped them to open their mind. So getting free, staying free, teaching free is that last part of finding personal power for Pluto in Sagittarius. But then, you know, there's also this full range of experiences. And what about Pluto in Sagittarius can be rooted in not getting themselves free and constantly feeling that sense of being restricted in some kind of way, and that lack of personal power that makes them feel enslaved, makes them feel somehow constricted and locked up? Or what is the range of experiences that is rooted in that opposite of Sagittarius energy, that Gemini energy, where you're constantly seeking new experiences, constantly moving, constantly researching, talking, and not necessarily applying the wisdom, not much less disseminating the wisdom? What is it like to be lost in the sauce of information? That part. And then we come to Pluto in Capricorn, which is what we have just finished, like quite literally today as I am recording this video. Pluto has finally made its permanent ingress into Aquarius, so it's out of Capricorn. And so yeah, Pluto in Capricorn, the time between 2008 and 2024. And when I think about this experience, I think about the power of learning from the past, the power of learning from authority, the power of learning from tradition, and the wisdom that you gain from what has already been done. This is the Gen Alpha sort of generation. And yeah, when I think about like Pluto being in Capricorn, again, just because Capricorn is so much associated with Saturn, and the current structures, the traditions, the standing authorities and hierarchies, the ways that all things have always been done. So what are the Pluto experiences that Pluto in Capricorn might be experiencing that are rooted in intense experiences with authority? And I can see it kind of playing out online right now. These folks do not mess with hierarchy. They do not mess with authority. And so, yeah, I feel like I see two schools of experience on this. The people that are experiencing loss of personal power due to authority and hierarchy, and the people who have aligned themselves and found personal power in aligning themselves with governmental bodies, authorities, hierarchies, traditions, that kind of thing. And my challenge to people who have aligned themselves with authority is, what is the difference between finding your personal power in being part of the authority versus finding your personal power instead in your responsibility to the people? So what is the difference between personal power gained by aligning yourself with traditions versus being responsible to the people around you? I wonder if that's a way to sort of shift thinking. And yeah, again, because this is the time between 2008 and 2024, you're still very much in your larval stage and figuring out this Pluto energy and how it might manifest in your life. But I very much challenge you to think about your any intense experiences that you have experienced with authority and how you find yourself aligned or not aligned with that authority. And then if you do not, on the other hand in the other part of the spectrum, if you do not find yourself in alignment with these authorities, then what do you actually find yourself responsible to / in alignment to? And how do you show up in the world from a sense of feeling responsible to? And then how do you find your personal power in that responsibility? Of course, definitely not letting yourself being dominated by or in subjugation to current governmental structures, authorities, the way things have always been done, the traditional way of doing things. Yeah. How do you subvert that? Then speaking of subverting it all, Pluto in Aquarius. That is 2024 to 2043. So once again, Pluto is a long range transit. And so, yeah, we on Earth may be experiencing a set of things, but that's not necessarily what the set of experiences the people born during this time might experience. So I'm going to talk about both halves of that thing. So what we might experience with a Pluto and Aquarius transit, and what I'm excited for us to experience, is because Aquarius is ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. Saturn says, okay, these are the structures, this is the box, this is the way things have always been done, these are the authorities, the hierarchies, and then Uranus says, rebel against that. This is the box. Break it apart, do something differently. Why? Because it's what is needed by the people. And so that's the kind of energy that I'm hoping that we channel over the next 20 years, is very much seeing the authority, understanding what's always been done and how it no longer serves us. I will also point out that because, this is full circle. We've gotten Pluto to Leo, and then to its opposite sign, Pluto in Aquarius. And so I wonder very much about the experience for us that are of age during the Pluto and Aquarius transit of tearing down our idols, taking these people that we've put on pedestals, these celebrities, the idea of celebrity culture, and dismantling and rebelling against that as well. That is something I'm really excited for. But yeah, the little babies, that are born during this time, what they may experience is really, really intense, surprising, off the wall, out of left field, just weird experiences around, yes, these governmental bodies, authorities, the celebrities, that kind of thing, that allow them to pinpoint what they want to rebel against, what they want to disrupt against, and the ways in which they may be able to find their personal power via that rebellion, via that disruption. And then, yeah, in terms of like the range of experiences, yes, to finding your personal power via rebellion. But then if we're talking about a full spectrum of experiences, in what ways might these people also feel dominated or lost by being a rebel without a cause? And so I think very much that if you are parenting someone from this Pluto in Aquarius generation, that it is important to give them focus, to instill in them the values of struggle, fight, rebellion, of speaking truth to power, but letting them understand that there are a myriad of issues that are out there, so that they can focus and harness their own way of disrupting. Because there are so many issues, I think it's going to be really, really important for parents to help them see all those issues, but also find the places where they resonate, or the places where they may have the skills to do disruption. So like understanding that your Pluto and Aquarius child has a really strong Mercury. Maybe they're like a Virgo or Gemini rising. And so can we get them into books and data collection? Or maybe they have a lot of Aquarius energy in their chart, generally speaking, an Aquarius stellium, and maybe they need to understand online archival strategies. Yeah, I think it's going to have to be the co-influence of understanding a few ways that they can plug into the rebellion, and also understanding the skills that they bring to the table. So yeah, those are all of the Pluto generations that we can understand, because Pluto was discovered during this Pluto in Leo time. So Pluto in Leo to Pluto in Aquarius, and I'm very excited to see what Pluto in Aquarius brings. And I'm curious about you. What Pluto generation do you belong to? And have you found your personal power yet? What's that journey been like? Particularly those intense transformational sorts of experiences. Yeah, tell me in the comments below. How have you been putting in that shadow work? Speaking of work, if you would like to support my work as a Black, queer, autistic content creator, astrologer, and artist, you can support this channel by becoming a member. Membership in this channel starts at $3.99 a month, and you get really cool perks like custom emojis and loyalty badges, getting to see content first, and of course the greatest perk of all, supporting your local Black, queer, autistic creator. If the monthly commitment is a bit too much, please contemplate just doing a tip via the thanks button below, and you can decide on the amount for that. And if that feels out of your reach as well, please just consider liking, commenting, and sharing my content with your networks. I'm still trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark where I can monetize my content, and I too might be able to survive capitalism. So yeah, those are all the ways that you can support me. As always, thank you so much for watching this video and just generally being a part of my crew. I absolutely appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and as always, thank you for making time for queer astrology.